The first full week of the Detroit Tigers offseason is upon us, and today we're going to start off with a mailbag. As promised last week, you guys sent in a ton of questions. They're all really good. So we're going to talk about that and answer all of your questions. Mailbag show, baby, today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Monday, October 10th, 2022. Thank you for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Okay, so as we said in the cold open, mailbag show today. As we said last week, this was always the plan. Do a Monday mailbag show, give you guys the whole weekend to ask some questions, fire away there. Got a lot of really cool questions that I think are going to lead to some pretty fascinating conversations. Some of them, if they're individual player based, we will go more in depth on when we do our player breakdowns for everybody. That will start tomorrow. I'm going to try to get through. I have like an in between amount of questions, like enough where I'm very confident and comfortable that we can fill one show, but not enough where I think that we're going to get two whole shows out of it. So it might just be like a longer episode today. Maybe I talk really fast and get through them. I don't know. Unlikely because we know how much I like to talk, but do have plenty for a show today. And then we will start our player breakdowns. Is important to note that as the weekend started, because I know that some questions had to do with personnel firings and Scott Harris and whatnot. So it's just important to note that going into over the weekend, going into this episode, Scott Police was fired, who has been the director of scouting for a lot of years and has been with the organization for 15 years. And then on the coaching level, Scott Coolball gone. I know that a lot of people wanted Scott Coolball. There's actually a question about the coaching staff and why it took so long to even make these changes. So we'll get to that. Mike Hessman, the real life, oh my goodness, Crash Davis. Mike Hessman and Ramon Santiago were also relieved from their duties at the major league level, but were offered positions and the development side of things that will probably lead them back to Toledo. I haven't heard anything on if they have accepted that, if they're willing to do that or whatnot, but that is currently, they will not be on the major league staff on opening day of next year. So that's noteworthy as well. Gary Jones is back. Alfredo Azamaga is back. Is back. Yeah. And then obviously AJ and Feder are very much staying. So just some personnel stuff. And like I said, we'll get more in depth on those. There's a couple of questions about the coaching staff, so I'll dive a little deeper into that when we get to that. But let's get right into it. I say right into it. We're like almost 4 minutes deep. Let's get into some of the questions here. We got a lot of really cool ones. So you guys are the best. There's a lot of really interesting discussions that can come out of this. We're gonna start with Kevin Roberson, whichever. I apologize. So good questions. Best seats in Comerica for starters. So my favorite value seats, as far as what you're paying for and the product you get, is upper deck right behind home plate. Those are the best value seats in my opinion. I think that they're not terribly expensive. They're not the like $12 seats that you're getting, way up high, third base side, upper deck, like in one of the last rows or anything, but they're pretty good value seats, and it is a perfect view of the everything. Like kind of a bird's eye thing right behind home plate. Beautiful. That is my like best value that I'll sit up there a lot every summer. So that's my answer to that one. Favorite places around Comerica, man. I think like Little Caesars Arena is a cop out answer, I guess. But that whole other side of Woodward has so much stuff now. There's a lot of really cool bars. Tin Roof is really popular, obviously. But even if you're not looking for like, the party, not party, but like the loud, like nightclub bar scene type of stuff, there's a lot of really cool restaurants over there that are open during the day. So like a lot. More than I can name. So there's a lot of really fun stuff to do on the other side of Woodward from Copa. Any Tigers autographs or pictures with players? Yeah, so I have Tigers autographs from I was in middle school, I want to say, and I keep score at every game, as y'all know. And before the game started, I think my dad had won like really good tickets through his work or something. And for some reason, we were like 2 rows back on the third base side, which is never like we always got the cheap seats because that's what more of what we could afford. And for whatever reason, we had really, really good seats that day. And a bunch of pitchers walked out. It would have been 2009 or 20. When was Edwin Jackson's year as a Tiger? 2010 ish, give or take a year. Um, That because I got Edwin Jackson's autograph and Justin Verlander's and Rick Porcello's. All of the pitchers walked from the bullpen to the dugout before the game, and I was a kid. I was in like 5th, 6th, 7th grade at the most. I think I was in 5th or 6th grade with some of my buddies, and I had a pencil and a scorecard, and that's all I had. So I asked them to sign the pencil and the scorecard. Didn't keep score that day because my scorecard that's still hanging. I take it everywhere I go. Well, everywhere I live. That's still hanging in my room to this day. Yeah, Justin Verlander, Rick Porcello, Edwin Jackson. I think those are the 3 on it. I have Chris Shelton's autograph from a long time ago. Dimitri Young. I have his autograph. Pictures with the Tigers. I have Chris Shelton and Dimitri Young's picture. Oh, Nate Robertson. I have his. Met him at a Kroger gum time, like right at the peak of gum time. Yeah, got quite a few there. So runs deep. A lot of it when I was more younger, I guess, but still super cool. Next up, we have more on the personnel side of things. We have what are your thoughts on AJ Hinch this year? This one specifically comes from Will Hinton, but somebody later in the show, somebody else also asked about AJ Hinch. Oh, here it is. John Landry said, "Why does AJ Hinch get a pass on the season? He was nearly canonized in 2021 when the team slightly overperformed. 2022 was a catastrophic, and I haven't heard anything about Hinch sitting on his hands as the team sunk to historic lows in offense and a weak defense." So we'll just 2 birds with one stone, just pretty much the same questioner's thoughts on AJ. Um, Nothing is inexcusable for this season for anybody. I don't think anyone would tell you otherwise. I don't think AJ Hinch would tell you otherwise. That was, as you put it, a catastrophic failure. It objectively was. I will say that I still believe that AJ Hinch is the person for this job going forward. I still believe that AJ Hinch is a good manager. I think that pointing at coaches and managers as to why no one could hit fastballs down the middle is like slightly trivial, not entirely. Again, no, everyone is to blame and no one is off the hook. That's I completely agree with that sentiment. But as far as like fireable offense, AJ Hinch is like not even in the top 10, maybe not even the top 20. If I had to make a list of reasons why the Tigers were so bad this year, I'm not sure AJ Hinch would even be in the top 20. He would be on the list eventually. I don't think he had a perfect season. But I still trust him. I still like the analytics that he uses. I still like the way that he manages games. It didn't work this year, but it's nice hearing about the mindset if you can win each day. Again, didn't work this season, but for whatever that's worth, which is not much, I guess. So it's tricky because I completely agree that he is not off the hook. I don't think, again, no one is. That this was terrible. But when I look at building this team going forward, and like I'm looking at 2023 and I'm looking at 2024 and what we need to do to be a more competitive product, I don't think a change at manager immediately affects or changes the outcome of next season. And I also still very much believe that AJ Hinch is very good at his job. Um, it's just a matter of putting in other coaches around him, because the rest of the coaching staff did not allow. We have a Scott Coolball question later. Um, but I do still believe in him. This is a big year. Admittedly, 2023 is like a really, because we've had one overperforming year and one underperforming year, right? So this year is obviously, but I'm also not the kind of person that I feel like a lot of people just need a scapegoat. Like they just need one. It's like, oh my goodness, something went wrong. Like I need somebody to be able to point at and be like, that's like whose fault this is. And again, if I was to make a list of all the things that went wrong and who's at fault for how bad this season went, AJ Hinch would not be anywhere close to definitely my top 10 reasons that this season was a catastrophic failure. So, not as much of a sit on hands because I do still believe in him and I still think he's the dude for the job. I'm not just like, oh, well, you're not going to get anyone better and like, why fire him or whatnot. I still believe in him going forward, but yeah, it's certainly a conversation. I don't want to make it sound like I know all and that, I think it's ridiculous if you have another opinion on the matter. But because I mean he's already polarizing as is, right? He came in and with the cheating thing and the Astros, he was already a polarizing figure. But I am not that worried about AJ Hinch and his ability to be a manager for this baseball team. That's my short answer of the last 2 minutes is he is not on my list of things I'm worried about for like hindering this team's growth. I think AJ Hinch will grow with the team. I think that he's still the right man for the job. Okay, let's get into our first break and then we'll answer some more questions. Yeah, I don't think I have any other really transition besides that. We're going to talk to you about our friends over at SimpliSafe first, though. The numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen SimpliSafe Home Security to protect their home. You'd earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. And at SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. I know because I use SimpliSafe in my own place. They protect you with cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who will always have your back. It's amazing. With 24/7 professional monitoring, SimpliSafe's agents can call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in case of an emergency, even if you're not home or can't be reached. SimpliSafe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and outside your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats in your home. Their monitoring experts use proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real, so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes, and at simplisafe.com/lockdownmlb, you can save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month for free. Visit simplisafe.com/lockdownmlb to learn more. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. All right, everybody. Welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Mailbag show today. Next up, let's do this one. This one's from Sam. The Scots trade places and you were hired by the Tigers. Who is the first to go and who do you try to acquire first? This is a great question. Because it fulfills my fantasy of running the Detroit Tigers, but this might be the closest I ever get. Having someone named Scott be the dude calling the shots is probably the closest I ever get to actually being in charge, which is sad because it's nowhere close, but I'm going to take it and run. First to go, to be completely honest with you, first to go might have already happened. Like Scott Coolball is probably the answer to that. If you're talking about personnel wise, I think Jonathan Schoop to whatever extent, whether it is just like bought out, give him some money, cut him, send him on his way, or I can't believe you would find a trade partner, but like maybe you do like a Robbie Grossman type deal where somebody gives you some 22-year-old in single A and is just like, oh, maybe like total shot in the dark, right? I think that that's probably the first one I would do of people that are under contract next year. Obviously, there's a lot of dudes that have expiring deals, or like Tucker Barnhart is not going to get re-signed, but he isn't technically under contract anymore and he's just not going to get brought back. So like that would, I guess, also be up there. But as far as people that are technically under contract or at least under team control next season, I think Scopey is probably the first person that I would let go. Next one is from, let's see here. Let's do from Mitch. Okay. Mitch says, do you think the 2023 Detroit Tigers version will be play the kids philosophy or sign a bunch of vets in order to dramatically improve the win-loss record? Thank you. Love the show. Appreciate you, Mitch. Thank you. So I think that I don't think that it's going to be a complete we're not going to make any moves this offseason and just a bunch of kids are going to come up and get all the opportunities. I don't think that that's where they are anymore. I don't think that that's where they want to be anymore. And I also think just from a depth perspective, we've seen so easily the last 2 seasons how quickly depth can just run dry and how you can be like, oh, I have one backup. Well, okay, if both of those dudes get hurt, then you're hosed. And like that, we've seen that so much, especially on the pitching side of things. So I genuinely believe that this team is going to bring in, I feel like the word like vets in baseball almost gets like a bad rap of like, oh, you're signing someone that's 35. Like, no, I don't think we're just going to have the oldest team in baseball either. Like, I think you're going to see dudes in their whatever, like late 20s, that are free agents maybe for the first time and are exiting team control. Like, I think that there's just the word like, oh, like MLB veteran. People just immediately think of dudes in their mid 30s and you can be a 6-7 year vet at 27, 28 years old. So like, I think that they will look at players that are kind of in that age range. I just expect such a overhaul of personnel and such a significant turnover that I find it really hard to believe that turnover would just be letting everybody go and then filling in the gaps with people that are already in this organization and in a farm system that ranks really like low. Which I think is also too dramatic. I think this farm system is better than what people think. But regardless, that's just like from a depth perspective, that's really dumb. So I think that they're trying to take a step in the right direction. I don't think they're just going to do a bunch of kids are going to play and that's, we're just going to get them experience and suck again for another year on purpose. I think the like hardcore rebuild years are kind of behind us. So I expect them to bring in outside talent and technically MLB veterans, but I don't want to say that and give you the impression that they're going to get a bunch of 40-year-olds. From AJ, we have, do you think Schoop, Candy, Barnhart, and Soto will be gone opening day 2023? I am very confident. Barnhart, there's literally no way. Tucker Barnhart played his last game with the Detroit Tigers. There is a 0% chance that Tucker Barnhart is on this team the second the World Series ends and like free agency and not re-signing people and non-tenders and all that. Tucker Barnhart is gone. He will not be here. When it comes to, I kind of put Schoop and Candy in slightly similar boats. Schoop is under contract for next season, and Candelario is under team control for next season, but would have to go to arbitration or sign a 1-year deal to avoid arbitration. I think that, and again, with the two of them, we will get into them in their player breakdowns and like really what went wrong and what we can really expect for this offseason. But my initial answer is no to both. I think it's really difficult to justify Jonathan Schoop being on this team next year. I think it's really difficult. And then when it comes to Jeimer Candelario, I think that I think he's a very solid non-tender candidate. I think he's a really, one of the biggest storylines I think of this offseason is going to be Jeimer Candelario non-tendered or tendered, or sent to arbitration, I guess, or not. My initial thought is no, but him and Soto could be on the team next year. They could. But if I had to give you an answer right now, I'm saying Schoop is gone, Candy is gone, Barnhart is gone. Soto, I really am super 50-50 on Greg. I'm really right in the middle on it because he's objectively a talent and it has intangibles that are really hard to develop and teach. But it's just been such a train wreck with the command. Maybe we know that Scott Harris likes to bring in more coaches. We know that he's going to bring in more coaches and have a bigger staff than the Tigers had last year. I don't know. I guess if I had to say right now, I would say he's on the team on opening day just because like the price maybe has to be right. And like, are you just going to let go of a dude with years of control left that throws 100 as a lefty for nothing? Probably not. But are you going to get the price you want? I don't know. His market is so weird that he's not going to be like cut or anything. If that's way too dramatic. He's not going to be like non-tendered or not re-signed or whatever. Like he'll either be back or be traded. Those are the only two options. He's not just going to get cut. He's not that bad. So my initial answer is he is the only one of those players you mentioned that is back, but it's a really tough one. It would not shock me at all if I came on here during winter meetings. It was like, oh, let's break down the Gregory Soto trade. That would not surprise me whatsoever. Okay, let's get into the rest of these questions right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. We have a question from Wayne. He says, I think it's so hard to predict how much money will be spent this offseason and who will be traded for whom. But in your opinion, what is the position that the Tigers will make the most impactful acquisition? I love this question because I agree with everything you said. I think it's a much more meaningful conversation to talk about the positions that will be added than like, oh, this player or this player, because a lot of the times you're just splitting hairs. So as far as position that the Tigers will make the most impactful acquisition of this offseason, it's really hard for me not to just take the easy answer and say starting pitcher. I think that that's a pretty easy one because it's a blatant need. Like there's no way the Tigers don't bring in at least one, probably two starting pitchers this offseason. There's no chance you can just look at the roster and be like, yeah, we don't need one of those. So I think that that's the really easy answer. But if you were to go, if I had to give a different one, just because I feel like that is such a slam dunk, I think middle infield. And whether it's second base and you keep Javi at short, or whether it's short and you move Javi to second, I don't really care. But that is something that, again, I would let go of Jonathan Schoop as of today. So that is something that needs to be addressed. I'm not starting Ryan Kreidler at either of those positions for 162 games. He has not hit nearly well enough this entire season at any level for me to have confidence that he can be the everyday starter yet over 162. He might develop into that one day. We hope he does, obviously. And like besides that, there's nobody else that's really even remotely proven that can play either of those two positions, again, over 162. So I think that that's my secondary answer behind starting pitcher, which I think is the really easy one. Okay, this one's from Frozen Ball. You mentioned on the podcast that you would not be surprised if half the roster was gone next year. Can you name 2 to 3 players with significant roles in 2022 to be playing elsewhere next season? Yes, and I want to not give. I feel like giving kind of the same players almost a cop out, but like it does technically answer your question. Like I'm not trying to wiggle my way out of tough questions, but like Jonathan Schoop and Jeimer Candelario and Tucker Barnhart, I think are like the 3 slam dunk answers there. People outside of that, look, I don't think that you're going to see a slew of trades per se. I think that a lot of the movement is just going to be like Tyler Alexander is a 50-50. It would not shock me if Tyler Alexander was even with years of control left, was um, not brought back, non-tendered, and just kind of let go. And then I don't think he would get a starting role anywhere, but maybe the same role that he's had here the last couple of years somewhere else. It wouldn't surprise me if Tyler Alexander was back either. I'm not advocating for saying that he's like good as gone like some of those other dudes. He's kind of a 50-51. Um, I mean, like, if Michael Pineda doesn't retire, like, I guess maybe him. I don't know if that's really prominent. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of trades. I don't think that this is going to be an offseason where, like, Gregory Soto, maybe. But I don't think that this is going to be an offseason where, like, we're trading people that were middle of the lineup hitters or, like, prominent pitchers in this organization this season. I think most of it, when I say that a lot of the roster is going to go away, it's a lot of the dudes that have a year left of control and didn't do well this year, or have 1 year left on their deals, or on just expiring deals and just not going to get brought back, period. That's where I think a lot of it's going to go. Or like those 4A kind of fringe 40-man dudes, like John Lester is not going to be on this team next season. You know what I mean? Like those are Miguel Diaz, probably not. I think that those are the players that are going to get mostly moved. I'm not sure outside of I guess the most prominent would be Jeimer and Schoop. So I don't want to recycle answers, but I don't want to just give you like hot take, like Javi's getting traded. Like, I don't think that's happening. So like that's kind of similar answer to that one as well. Let's see here. Let's go to Chris. Chris says, who would be your pick for 2023 Tigers Rookie of the Year? I absolutely love this question. And when will we see Wilmer Flores and Andre Lipsius make their MLB debut? Great question. For 2023 Tigers Rookie of the Year, we saw this year that really can come out of nowhere. So, like, there's a plethora of possibilities, right? I mean, nobody in their right mind would have expected Kerry Carpenter to do what he did this year. And I don't think Kerry Carpenter is going to win Rookie of the Year. I think it's Tigers Rookie of the Year is probably just kind of has to be Riley Green. And it's not even like he lit the world on fire, but like I don't really know where else you go. Um, is that dumb? I feel like there's someone I'm like maybe blatantly missing, but no, I think you kind of just have to give it to Riley. But my point is with the Kerry Carpenter thing, like people can come out of nowhere and just like a switch can flip and you can just turn it on. I think you might have like stolen my answer in your question. I would love it if Andre Lipsius got a legitimate look. I don't think he'll get enough playing time next year. Like, I'm not saying that Lipsius is going to get a significant role on the team next season. I don't think he's on the opening day roster or anything. But like if injuries happen or whatnot and he needs to be called up, I think that it would be like pretty sweet if he got a legitimate look because I love him. He's one of my favorite, if he might be my favorite prospect in the entire Tigers organization. I love him. On base percentage, draws a ton of walks, doesn't strike out a lot. I love him. So as far as when we will see Wilmer Flores and Lipsius, I think, well, first Lipsius has to get added to the 40-man because if we don't, he's going to get lost in the Rule 5. We had that conversation a few weeks ago. So that's like his first thing he has to overcome is like actually getting put onto the 40-man roster this offseason, which is already kind of up for grabs and not a guarantee, but also definitely not something you look at and go, absolutely not. So we'll see what happens with that leading up to the Rule 5 draft. When is that, December? Wilmer Flores, I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Reese Olson, I think, will make his MLB debut next season, and it'll be out of the Tigers bullpen. I'm fairly confident in that. Wilmer Flores, I think they really want to work as a starter. So I think that he could get a look next season, maybe later in the year, second half of the season. Or if a lot of injuries happen again, maybe he has to get called up a little bit earlier. But I think that they're also going to really not baby him, but I think they're going to really not push him too much because they're really high on him as they should be. And he has very like small chance of still like bullpen future as well for him too, but they're going to try to make him work as a starter. And so, yeah, I would say at the earliest for Flores, like second half of next season. And Reese Olson, I think, might come. I know you didn't mention him, but I think he could come up really at any point next year and be out of the pen if he starts off well in Toledo next year. Lipsius, if they add him to the 40-man, he will debut next season because you're not going to make that addition and take up an entire 40-man roster spot just to not utilize him at some point. But that's like the first hurdle that he has to overcome. He's got to get put on the 40-man first before we can get too much further. Let's see, what else do we have here? Do you think this one's from Johnson Family Farm? Do you think JV will come back? And if you do you think he will help the starting rotation? Well, if Justin Verlander was to come back, he would obviously. I mean, he's my Cy Young vote this year. Might be some bias in there. Don't care. He had like a 1.8 ERA, sub 1.8 ERA as like a 40-year-old coming off Tommy John. He is unbelievable. So obviously, if he came back in the rotation, he would certainly help it, and he would very much be a starter. The Verlander reunion is something that has been talked about for a long time with this team, really ever since he left. I wouldn't hold my breath. I think if it was going to happen, it was going to happen last year, and it didn't. And I don't think the Astros are going to be too keen to just let go. I don't care how old he is. I don't think they're just going to let go of a dude that just won Cy Young. You feel me? Like, that's a really tough sell, especially with the fact that the Astros are still in contention more than you, right? That the Astros they're my pick in the American League to make the World Series. Like, I think the Astros are unbelievable. They're the best team in the American League. I think they're insane. So I just, as the Houston Astros, I don't think you're going to look around and go, okay, our window is still now. We still have all of the core to make another run. Let's not bring back our presumably reigning Cy Young winner. Like, I just don't see that happening. So I would not hold, like I said, if there was ever a year to do it, it would have been last season when he was turning 40 or 39 and coming off Tommy John. And there was a big question mark about how healthy he was and how effective he was going to be because of the Tommy John and everything. Last year was the year, and it didn't happen. And now I think the Astros are probably just going to hold on to him until he's not an effective pitcher anymore. I think if the Tigers at any point do get him back, it would be like a 1-year reunion, and he's going to be like 45 and have like a 4.5 ERA and not be the amazing pitcher that he is anymore, just to like end the career with us. But I don't even know if that's going to happen. I wouldn't hold my breath at this point. I think the situation, like I said, last year was really the year. We have one from Susan. Talk about Cabrera. If he was Joe Nobody, he would have been DFA'd long ago. Why is everybody afraid to be honest? So yeah, obviously Miguel Cabrera is not effective, not nearly as effective as he used to be. Objectively true. Few things to keep in mind. One, this was a historically bad offense. Miguel Cabrera's numbers fit in right with everybody else's. That he was not even an outlier this year. He was like middle of the pack hitter for this team because of how historically bad it was. Now, next season, you're presuming that you're going to get better. So hopefully that is not the case. And hopefully we can get a much better lineup. But his numbers were like not really an outlier. His season numbers, I know he went through stretches that were not good, but his season numbers weren't even like that crazy, that much different from everybody else's because that's how bad we were. He's going to have the farewell tour. Like, that's just what's going to happen. And you have to realize how many tickets he puts. Comerica's first sellout since like the Bush administration was this season because of the chase to 3,000 hits. And last year, when he was chasing down 500 home runs at the end of the year, we were selling out stadiums for the first time in forever. Like, that's something that nobody else on this team can provide, no matter how good or poorly he hits. And he's going to get the farewell tour, and people late in the season next year, no matter how good or bad our record is, are going to come watch Miguel Cabrera one last time. And ownership knows it, and management knows it. And I don't think anyone's being dishonest about his production, at least the circle that I run with. I don't think anyone is like pretending like he's some really good hitter still. I think everyone's pretty aware that he's just like not very effective and has no power. Like he had 5 home runs this year. Like the power is gone. All of it's just singles. The production, the little production that he does have. So I don't think it's a dishonest thing. I think it's just you just have to realize how much money he's going to bring in on a farewell tour, and like they're not just going to let that go. So just how the business works, and he will be on the team next year. He might not play very much, but he'll be around next season. Okay, we have not saying this is from Kendrick. Not saying this is the direction they will go or should go, but you never know. Do you think Chris is going to give Scott Harris full reins to spend whatever on whoever, namely Aaron Judge? Do you think Aaron Judge plus a top end starter, another bat, and a healthy Tigers team would be competitive? And what would it take to get Judge to Detroit? Nothing. I would cry tears of joy. And maybe this is just me being a pessimist and being like, hey, don't get your hopes up so that you don't get let down. But I don't think Judge is leaving New York. I would be stunned if the Yankees did not bring him back. Like, you're the New York Yankees and your dude on your contract year just set the AL home run record. I don't think it's really an option anymore for the Yankees, like given their fan base and their ownership. I don't think it's really an option to not bring him back. I think they will get him. I think it'll be a hefty contract, 8 to 10 years, over 300 mil. It'll be a lot. And I don't think the Tigers, I don't think that's a possibility. Now, when it comes to the free agent market and just will he have free reign? People not forget. Last offseason, we did spend a little bit. And I'm not saying we spent a ton, and I'm not saying that we broke the bank. And we did take the cheapest shortstop option, and we didn't get, some Cy Young caliber starting pitcher. But we did spend more than we have in the last 6 or 7 years last offseason. So I don't think it's impossible for the Tigers to go in this offseason and give out significant money. Now, do I think that they're going to give out a $350 million contract to him or Correa or someone? No. But I do think that you're going to see a lot more just like solid deals. I think you're going to see like right now, this roster is literally full of 3 dudes that make like legitimate solid money in Cabrera, Erod, and Javi. And then really outside of that, it's all dudes on like arbitration and like team control that have very small contracts. Like that's pretty much it. So I think you're going to see just more of the surrounding moves. You're going to see, I don't even know how to word what I'm saying. I'm so sorry. But like the I don't think you're just going to see one contract given out. It's 300 mil. Oh, look, the Illich just spent money. Everybody else is still like in their first 3 years and not making anything. I think that this is a legitimate, you're going to see a lot of deals given out of like, oh, this is like a $30 million deal for 2 or 3 years. And that's, 10 or 15 AAV. That's something we don't really have a lot of. Like, I think that that's more of what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of fillers that raise the talent of this team around it more so than just like one mega deal and like, oh, look, they spent. I think that's more of what I'm expecting. I could be wrong, but that's more of my expectation for the offseason, I think. Let's see if there's anything else here. I know I'm way over time, but I was kind of in that in between where I didn't really have enough for 2 shows. Okay. Oh, this is the one I want to. This is from Jones. He says, "Why weren't the hitting coaches fired earlier in the season? I personally have no idea. A shakeup in the coaching staff doesn't necessarily mean everything is going to get fixed, but it sends a message that things aren't going well, and there's at least an effort to change things, especially when you have these young hitters like Torque and Green, who are ingesting more information from coaches than veteran players are." Yeah, so that's definitely a legitimate question. I think these are all legitimate questions, but I think that once you got to a certain point, like there is not a elite hitting coach that's just like out there in July, right? Like the market for hitting coaches, like the only option would have been to fire him and then promote someone else internally that all these dudes really already know. And like I agree with you that it would have sent a message. That's objectively true. But when you're talking about what they would have done instead, that becomes a really like again like the answer is not just waiting out there in the middle of a season. Like all the good hitting coaches are on teams. So I don't think it was as black and white as like, oh my goodness, I agree, school ball. Scott Coolball definitely like that would have been my first order of business. Like I said at the beginning of the show, would have been to fire him like that without a doubt. Like definitely needed to go. But I when it comes to the mid-season firing thing, like yes, I wouldn't have been against it. Trust me. Like I would have been totally fine if he got canned in June or May. Like I'm not advocating for him to have had a job. Like I wanted him gone as well. But just when you look at the alternative options, like it really only would have been you fire him and then you promote internally and then you're just one coach down like in your organization because that's really the only avenue you had. So um while I'm not like, oh yeah, they needed to hold on to him because like it might have worked eventually. But he was the hitting coach last year in 2021 when the offense was way better than we expected. And now he was the coach this year when it was historically bad. So like you fire him, absolutely. But in July, maybe you look around and go, okay, there's nothing better out there. Let's see if maybe in the second half of this year he can revert back to what he was doing that was working objectively in 2021. I don't know. That's just what I think their mindset was. But I also am not really one for, like you said in your question, you admitted the same mindset. I'm not. I don't think that a coach is gonna take this historically terrible offensive product and make it like even league average. I think even the best coach of all time probably wouldn't have been able to do that. Is there anything else? I don't think so. I think that's everything. Um, yeah, yeah. Oh, somebody said, "What other music can you recommend?" Because I mentioned Peasy, who's I'm huge into Detroit rap. I just love the city of Detroit, and Peasy's one of my favorite Detroit rappers. So somebody said that they listen to Peasy now, and yeah. Also, this dude's Twitter name is the Wheeziest Wayne, and like Lil Wayne is also like my goat. So. That's kind of funny. No, I mean like Babyface Ray, another great Detroit rapper. All Star Jr., another great Detroit rapper. There you go. I think that's it. I think that's everything I wanted to get to. I'm doing one last kind of run through. Paul asked me splits on if how the bullpen performed with and without a lead. Um, Individual players, I can do like in wins and losses and in high leverage and low leverage. It would take me give me a couple weeks. I will do this for you. But not just like a stat that's just like accessible immediately. But I can crunch and I can get back to you on that. Um Wins and losses, you didn't ask for wins and losses, but I'm just clarifying like wins and losses obviously the bullpen in games that they lost is going to have a really high ERA. In games they won is not. With a lead is an interesting concept, and you had mentioned this a few times. I've seen you in the replies a few times this season talking about like I feel like when we have a lead, the bullpen doesn't do well, and we just never have a lead, and the bullpen does well when we lose. I will number crunch for you. Okay, I will give me a couple weeks and remind me if a couple of weeks go by and I don't do anything about it. I think that's it, dog. I think that's everything. Yeah. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and his unique perspective on every team and stories from around the league. Follow the number one daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Such a long episode. Such a long episode. I am so sorry for how long this is. I apologize for that. Like 45 plus minutes long, we're about to be. But like I said, I was in that in-between spot with questions where it didn't have enough for 2 shows, but had probably more than just 1 show. So we're just going to give you a super long show on Monday. Tomorrow, we start player breakdowns. Also, if you're just now, like you didn't get a question in, if I somehow missed your question, which I'm really sorry if I did, I think I covered, there were some comments made, but I think I answered every question. I didn't, like I said, my fault, genuinely sorry. And there will be multiple mailbags throughout the season. So when winter meetings come around, we will probably have another mailbag. When spring training comes around, we'll have another mailbag. Maybe even when free agency starts, we'll have another mailbag. We will have plenty of opportunities. Now that the Tigers aren't playing every day, we will really open the floor up to y'all as and as far as what we talk about. Tomorrow we start player breakdowns. I'm super pumped. I have not chosen who person number 1 is going to be. But I'm probably going to start with a bang. I feel like I want to start with somebody that like I have a really hard opinion on is not coming back next year, or maybe somebody that like I'm super in between on, like a 5 out of 10 on why. We're going to do a player grade at the beginning, letter grade, then a breakdown of the player's season. And then we are going to end the shows with out of a 1 through 10 scale likelihood of them being back next year. Because we got a whole month almost, like 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks until like free agency and everything's going to open up, because we can't start that till after the postseason. Keep an eye out for more Scott Harris moves. This staff is going to be moving. We've already seen it, right? We're already firing people that have been with the organization for 10, 15 years. We're firing coaches left and right. Keep an eye out. This dude is not going to stop. There's going to be a lot of turnover, and we haven't even gotten to the players part of the turnover yet. And we already have like half of this like staff seems to be axed. So keep an eye out for that. We'll talk about it on the show when it happens. Yeah. Thank you all so much. I appreciate y'all. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'm finishing this right before kickoff of the Lions game. So if you ask a question before Sunday at 1, that's why I didn't see that one. I think that's it. Time to go get very disappointed by my football team. Go Tigers, baby.